Hello, everyone. Tonight I'll tell you a story that has been buried in silence for decades. A story about a village covered in eternal fog and an ancient tree believed to hold the soul of the dead. Those who dared to touch it were never the same again. If you think curses are just myths, sit back, dim the lights, because this story, The Curse Under the Ancient Tree, might make you question everything you thought was only a legend. In the year 1974, nestled deep within the mist-shrouded northern mountains of Vietnam, existed a small, isolated village named Tà Lâm. This was a place forgotten by time, where the sun seemed a distant memory, perpetually veiled by a thick, unyielding fog. The silence in Tà Lâm was not peaceful. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket, a palpable presence that clung to the air. Here, the cheerful chirping of birds and the drone of insects were absent. The only sound was the profound stillness itself, broken only by the hushed whispers of its inhabitants. The villagers of Tà Lâm lived in a state of quiet reverence and fear, their lives dictated by ancient traditions and superstitions. They believed that the vast, dense forest surrounding them was not merely a collection of trees, but the domain of a powerful spirit guardian. This belief was not abstract. It was anchored to a very real, very imposing entity at the forest's heart, a colossal 1,000-year-old tree, so ancient its bark was as gnarled as an old man's face, and its roots twisted across the forest floor like a congregation of monstrous serpents. The villagers called it Kai Lin Hong, the Tree of Souls. The village elders, their faces etched with the wisdom and worries of generations, passed down a single, solemn warning, a rule that was the bedrock of their existence. They would gather the children and, with grave tones, recount the law. Whoever dares to harm its roots, they would say, their voices barely above a whisper, will lose their soul, for beneath that tree rests the guardian of the forest. The warning was absolute, a sacred pact between the people and the ancient power that watched over them. It was a pact that ensured the forest remained untouched, a sanctuary of silence and mystery. But the modern world, with its relentless march of progress, eventually found its way to the quiet borders of Tà Lâm. A mountain road construction project was initiated, a plan to connect the remote region to the bustling world beyond. The project's engineers and workers, men of concrete and steel, saw the forest not as a sacred place, but as an obstacle. During their work, a team of laborers deaf to the local superstitions accidentally severed one of the massive serpent-like roots of the ancient tree. The sound of the axe striking the wood echoed through the silent valley like a sacrilegious scream. The villagers watched in horror, their hearts heavy with a sense of impending doom. For 3 days, an eerie calm settled over Tà Lâm, a silence even deeper than before. And then, on the morning of the 4th day, the construction camp was found empty. The workers who had cut the root had vanished. There was no sign of a struggle, no tracks leading away, no clue as to their fate. They were simply gone, swallowed by the fog and the forest, without a single trace. From that day forward, the road project was abandoned, and a profound terror solidified in the hearts of the villagers. No one, not even the most reckless youth, ever dared to set foot in that forest again. Decades passed, and the story of the vanished workers and the cursed tree of Tà Lâm slowly faded into the realm of local folklore. But mysteries have a way of calling out to those who seek them. Years later, a young, ambitious archaeologist named Min was assigned to lead a survey of the mysterious, uncharted region surrounding the village. Min was a man of science, a scholar who believed in facts, evidence, and logical explanations. To him, curses were the stuff of fairy tales, and spirits were mere figments of a pre-scientific imagination. He arrived in Tà Lâm with his equipment and his team. His mind focused on geological data and historical artifacts, not ancient legends. Yet, from the moment he stepped into the village, an unsettling feeling began to creep into the edges of his rational mind. The profound silence was the first thing he noticed. It was unnatural. He had been in remote wilderness areas all over the world, but he had never experienced a place so utterly devoid of life's ambient sounds. There were no birds calling from the treetops, no insects buzzing in the undergrowth, not even the gentle rustle of wind through the leaves. The silence was an active force, pressing against his eardrums, making him feel as though the entire forest was holding its breath, listening to his every move. An old woman, her back bent with age and her eyes holding a deep, sorrowful knowledge, approached him as he set up his base camp on the edge of the forbidden woods. Her voice was frail, like dry leaves skittering across stone. "Don't go too deep, son," she warned, her gaze fixed on the wall of fog that marked the forest's entrance. The guardian of the forest still hasn't found peace. Min offered her a polite, dismissive smile, thanking her for the concern while inwardly cataloging her words as a prime example of local superstition. He was here to uncover history, not to be deterred by ghost stories. That night, however, his scientific certainty began to fracture. He was jolted awake in his tent by a sudden, bone-deep chill. Peering outside, his breath caught in his throat. There, standing just at the edge of the swirling fog, was a pale, spectral figure with long, flowing white hair. It was utterly still, its form indistinct in the gloom, and it seemed to be staring directly at him. He blinked, and it was gone. Shaken, he dismissed it as a trick of the moonlight and his tired mind. But when morning came, he discovered a circle of strange, unsettling footprints surrounding his tent. They were long and slender, almost like human hands pressed into the damp earth. The unsettling encounter did little to deter Min. Instead, it fueled his scientific curiosity. The next day, he and his team ventured into the forest, pushing deeper into the oppressive silence. The air grew colder, the fog thicker, swirling around them like lost souls. After hours of trekking through the eerie woods, they finally reached its heart. There it stood, the ancient tree, even more massive and imposing than the legends described. Its presence was overwhelming, a silent, brooding monarch in a kingdom of fog. Surrounding the base of the tree was a circle of weathered stone tablets, each one intricately carved with the same haunting image. A kneeling woman, her eyes bound by a strip of cloth, and her mouth sealed shut. Driven by the thrill of discovery, Min ordered his team to begin a careful excavation around the tree's base. As their shovels first broke the soil, a sudden, violent wind howled through the clearing, whipping their hair and clothes. Though the sky above remained perfectly clear and cloudless, the trees around them thrashed wildly, their branches groaning in protest. Just as the strange gale subsided, a worker let out a startled shout. He had struck something hard beneath the gnarled roots. Working together, they carefully unearthed a small, ornate stone box. The air grew heavy with anticipation as Min lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of rotted silk, lay a beautiful, haunting silver mask, crafted in the likeness of a serene face. Ancient inscriptions in a script Min had never seen before were etched along its edges. After hours of painstaking work back at camp, he managed to translate the chilling message: remove not the mask of the forest guardian. He who does shall replace her for eternity. Curiosity, however, is a dangerous and powerful thing, especially for a man dedicated to uncovering the past. The warning felt like a challenge, a final piece of the puzzle. Min returned to the tree, the silver mask cool and heavy in his hands. He had to know. He had to understand. Under the watchful gaze of his nervous team, he reached out and touched the mask. The moment his fingertips brushed against the cold, smooth silver, a piercing, inhuman scream ripped through the forest. A sound of pure agony that seemed to come from the earth, the sky, and the ancient tree all at once. The ground trembled violently beneath their feet, and the world plunged into an abrupt, absolute darkness. When Min awoke, the screaming had stopped. The ground was still. The oppressive silence had returned, deeper and more profound than ever before. He pushed himself up, his head throbbing, and looked around. He was alone. His entire team, his assistants, the local guides, the workers, had vanished. Panic seized him as he frantically called out their names, his voice swallowed by the suffocating quiet. He stumbled through the clearing in a daze, his mind reeling. And then he saw them. They were standing in a circle around the ancient tree, perfectly still, like a collection of strange, new statues. He ran towards them, relief flooding his chest. But as he got closer, a cold dread replaced it. Each of his team members was standing motionless, their heads tilted back, their eyes wide and vacant, and fused to each of their faces, covering their features completely, was a gleaming silver mask. Just then, a whisper slithered through the mist, a woman's voice, impossibly ancient and filled with a deep, unending sorrow. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You have awakened me," the voice sighed, carrying a chilling weariness. "Now, you shall guard this forest in my place." As the last word echoed, the wind roared back to life, not as a gale, but as a furious spectral vortex. The world around Min dissolved into a swirling torrent of darkness and screaming whispers. He felt a searing cold press against his face, a weight that stole his breath and his identity. When he opened his eyes again, the forest was gone. He found himself standing at the edge of the village, the familiar fog swirling around his feet. He raised a hand to his face, and his fingers met the cold, unyielding surface of polished silver. He was wearing the mask. After that night, the entire region around Tà Lâm was officially sealed off by the government, citing geological instability. No official report ever mentioned what truly happened to the archaeologist Min and his team. He was never seen again, but the villagers who remained, living in the shadow of the silent forest, began to tell new stories. They claimed that on moonless nights, they could hear the faint, rhythmic sound of footsteps circling the perimeter of the woods. Sometimes, carried on the cold night air, they would hear faint whispers calling their names from the darkness. So, if you ever find yourself passing through the remote, forgotten mountains of northern Vietnam, and you come across a village named Tà Lâm, shrouded in perpetual fog, and you hear the wind whisper your name, don't look back, for the Guardian may still be searching for a replacement. So, what do you think? Was it truly a curse, an ancient entity protecting its domain? Or was it simply nature's brutal way of punishing those who disturb what should remain forgotten? The line between legend and reality is often blurred in the shadows of the unknown. If you'd like to uncover more hidden mysteries like this, subscribe and stay with us, because the next story might be even darker than the one you just heard.